We are at the Mexican Canyon Trestle, which offers a lot of information about how these trees were logged and how they were eventually used to build these train trestles to take people from the desert area up into the mountains. How were logs moved at that time? Well, they were moved in these chutes. You would cut a log like this here, and then you would cut other logs and make a chute and transport the logs down to the hill and the sawmill. A lot of times it was young boys that would be a part of this chute process, and it would be mules or horses that would help keep the momentum going. And all sorts of people were involved in the logging industry. It didn't really matter who you were, where you came from, or how old you were, they could use you. As a tourist attraction, there was this railroad that went all the way from the desert up into the mountains to a place called Cloud Croft. Once we got up in here, there was a lot of S-turns and difficult terrain for the trains, and actually this is one of the only places where a train was designed to go backwards. So it would go forward a little bit, and then it would back up, and then it would make this turn because it was such a tight turn. That's a really, really rare thing. Most of the logging in the beginning was done by hand, and animals were involved in transporting the logs. And it was a big project, and like I said, they would use mostly men from all ages. If you happened to be a new immigrant and you had a family, a lot of times they would let your family live in the logging camp. Unfortunately, railroads and loggings wasn't always a safe occupation, and there were a lot of accidents along the way. A lot of times it had to do with being unable to control the speed, or the weight was too much. Tuberculosis, which is sort of a disease/virus that affects the lungs, was also something that people thought would be easier to manage in cooler, higher temperatures. And a lot of times children were also affected by this, so they would take children up to the cooler temperatures along this train as well. Because it was a steam engine, they also had to stop along the way to pick up more water to keep the train going up the 26-mile, 4,000-foot elevation incline.
So this trestle is 330 feet long, 60 feet off the ground at the highest point, and has been mostly restored due to just weakening beams from its original build in 1889.
It only costs $3 to take a ride from the desert up into the mountain, and they would put people in these cars. Sometimes they had so many people in the summer that wanted to come up that the people would actually go on top of the cars just to get out of the heat. Sometimes they would take as many as 600 passengers. And this was all taking place in the late 1800s. I'm gonna guess, but I might be wrong. This little bench might be from some of the original timber that was used on the trestles. Probably about 8 inches by 6 inches. For those of you that don't think geometry and algebra are important, I guess you'll never be designing anything like this. This definitely takes a lot of mathematical skill to accomplish and to accomplish properly. And even with proper building, sometimes the materials that you use can over time degrade and not do as well. This section here that we've been learning about was actually reconstructed in the 80s with the National Forest, and they did a good job taking care of it and bring it back to life so that people could have you know, a history lesson and some enjoyment on these trestles. Thank you, Mexican Canyon Trestles. We've learned a lot about early day tourism, early day logging, early day work, and this forest here actually was all depleted because of the logging. So it's good that we have laws that help protect our natural spaces, because they will naturally come back, but when you deplete a resource, it takes a long time for it to come back. So always make sure you respect your outdoors.